Welcome, fellow truth seekers, to Unveiling the Shadows, the channel where we dive deep into the mysteries that lurk beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest tragedies in U.S. history, the 9/11 terrorist attack. Let's talk about what's lurking in the shadows. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world changed forever. Two planes struck the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, a third crashed into the Pentagon, and a fourth went down in a Pennsylvania field. Officially, the United States government told us it was the work of Al-Qaeda, a terrorist group led by Osama bin Laden. But what if I told you there's more to the story? What if the truth isn't what we've been led to believe? One of the most controversial theories surrounding 9/11 is the idea that the Twin Towers were not simply brought down by planes, but rather by a controlled demolition. Skeptics point to the way the buildings fell, straight down, almost at freefall speed, with plumes of dust and debris shooting outward in symmetrical bursts. Architects and engineers from around the world have questioned how the impact of planes and resulting fires alone could cause such a perfectly uniform collapse. Some claim that thermite, a highly explosive substance, was found in the rubble. But if explosives were planted inside the buildings, who put them there and why? Even more intriguing, scientific tests on the debris revealed traces of nanothermite, a highly engineered incendiary compound used in demolitions. Was this just a coincidence or evidence of a deeper plot? Some skeptics point to the owner of the World Trade Center complex, Larry Silverstein, who reportedly took out an extensive insurance policy just months before the attack. A clause in the policy covered terrorist-related destruction. Could he have had prior knowledge? Or is this just another piece of the puzzle with no clear answer? And here's something even more puzzling. The Twin Towers were specifically designed to withstand an impact from a commercial jetliner. Engineers who worked on the construction of the buildings had studied the effects of a Boeing 707 crashing into the towers. The official explanation states that the intense heat from the burning jet fuel caused the steel beams to weaken and fail. But experts argue that the temperatures inside the buildings never reached high enough levels to melt steel. So if the fires weren't enough to bring the buildings down, what did? Now here's something they really don't want you to talk about. Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper, collapsed later that same day, despite not being hit by a plane. The official explanation? Fires inside the building caused it to weaken and fall. But here's the catch. No steel-framed skyscraper in history had ever collapsed from fire alone. And here's another mystery. Before Building 7 collapsed, multiple news stations reported that it had already fallen, even though it was still standing in the background of their live broadcasts. Was this just a reporting error, or a sign that someone knew what was coming? The implications are staggering. If Building 7 was intentionally demolished, who ordered it? Some researchers have suggested that critical government and financial documents were stored inside, documents that could have exposed powerful figures. Was the collapse a cover-up? And if so, what information was lost forever? Adding even more mystery, surveillance footage from the area shows emergency personnel warning bystanders to get back because the building was about to come down. Several minutes before it actually fell. How did they know? And why was there a near-perfect vertical collapse, identical to controlled demolitions? Here's where things get even stranger. Flight 77 allegedly crashed into the Pentagon, the heart of America's military might. But eyewitness accounts, surveillance footage, and the limited debris raise more questions than answers. Where was the wreckage? Why did the hole in the building seem so small, compared to the wingspan of a Boeing 757? And why is there almost no clear footage of the impact, despite the Pentagon being one of the most heavily surveilled buildings in the world? Then there's the question of the missing plane parts. Unlike the crashes at the Twin Towers, very little wreckage was visible at the Pentagon site. Witnesses described minimal debris, no major wings, no large fuselage remains. Some even suggested it looked more like an explosion than a plane impact. Additionally, the section of the Pentagon that was hit was under renovation and housed an audit team investigating a mysterious $2.3 trillion in missing Pentagon funds, announced by then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld just one day before 9/11. Coincidence? Or something far more sinister? Why were only a handful of blurry security camera frames released to the public when the Pentagon is surrounded by cameras? What is being hidden? Some researchers believe a missile, not a plane, struck the building based on the lack of plane debris and the precision of the impact. We've all heard the story. 19 hijackers, led by Osama bin Laden, took control of 4 planes and used them as weapons. But did you know that some of those supposed hijackers were later found alive? How could this be? Did someone steal their identities? Or was the entire story a fabrication? And let's talk about flight school records. Many of the alleged hijackers had minimal flying experience, yet they supposedly executed complex maneuvers that even veteran pilots struggle with. Is that even plausible? History has shown us that governments have fabricated reasons to go to war before. Could September 11th have been another case of this? A pretext for endless war in the Middle East, and a justification for mass surveillance and loss of freedoms under the Patriot Act. What do you think? Are things exactly what they claim to be, or is there a hidden side to the story? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos uncovering hidden truths, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the deeper you dig, the more questions you'll find.